And I feel like email, it goes in the other direction, right? You own it, you decide when to send. And most people will see most of their emails depending on how many promotional things they get. But they're much more likely to see all of their emails than everything all of their friends or followers or people they follow have posted on Instagram.
You're listening to Podcasting for Experts, with honest conversations about using podcasting as a tool to grow your reach, increase your audience, make a positive impact on the world, and most importantly, to get paid for your efforts. I'm your host, Jess, and we are Pristine Podcasts. Let's talk podcasting. Hey Sandra, thank you so much for joining me for the podcast today. I was so excited for this.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today.
We talked already about email marketing now, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And I feel like people have this love-hate relationship with email marketing. Everyone says, you should have an email list. Yeah. You should do this. You should be sending newsletters to your people. And lots of times we set something up. We put our freebie in place, we start getting email subscribers, but we don't do anything with them. And then we feel bad about not sending them emails. And then we don't dare to sell them anything. And when people unsubscribe, that's like, oh my God, I said something wrong. And I would love to clear up a little bit. What can we expect? How important is email marketing? How can we come up with a plan that works for us? And just dig into it a little bit. And maybe let's not be so afraid of tackling this topic and also selling something to people, because
at the end of the day, the mortgage has to be paid. No, I mean, I agree with everything you just said. Email marketing, it's this thing where everyone tells you you need it. You kind of try to do it a different way. But at the end of the day, it works, right? First of all, it's this thing where the world gets noisier and noisier and we're on social media all the time. But the thing is that most people will still open the app and actually read their emails, just like they will open a podcast app and see what's new. So it's also this thing where you'll have a much larger attention span of the person you're trying to reach. The other thing about email is that we take it very personal when someone unsubscribes. But what I try to do for myself is bring it back to numbers. And it doesn't mean that I'm not grateful for every human being that opens my emails and some of them reply. And that's the best feeling in the world, is when someone replies to your email. But it's also a little bit of a numbers game where, people with 60,000 persons on their email list will get the same conversion rate that I will, likely. And B2B businesses usually get around 1 to 2%, which means that I know if I send a sales sequence to 100 people, 1 or 2 people will buy it. That's kind of how the math works. I just think it's this tool that we all kind of know we need and we all resist because for some reason we find it not fun, or it's scary, or it's annoying. And then once you sort of start doing it, there is magic. I remember setting up a tripwire after my freebie. So it's a limited time discount after someone signs up for my free opt-in offer. And waking up and someone bought it. There's magic in that too. And if you want that kind of magic, you kind of have to do the work up front a little bit.
Yeah, so that was me. So I've been online for about 6 years now. And for 5.5 out of the 6 years, I completely ignored email. And I mean, I've been setting it up, right? I used to do tech. So I've been the one setting it up, sending them for all my clients, seeing them work. I know the exact conversion rates and I know how well it works for everybody. And I just decided it was just another thing that I had to be doing and whatever. But now I have to say I've gotten a little bit fed up of being on social media all the time because I keep getting roped into conversations with people I decided I don't want to have a conversation with. It's just socially charged at the moment as well. And I just don't want to have my energy go into seeing another argument on social media. And, you know, with my email, I can talk about the things that I want to be talking about and people will reply to it. And I like to read that. And I'd rather have a conversation that way about things that are important to me and not get roped into everything else. So that's why I'm like, okay, I want to be building a group of like-minded people and email is a great way to do that. So for our listeners who have a podcast, but who haven't actually even ventured into email marketing at all, and who are not really business owners and who don't really know about that, but they have a podcast, they get a lot of downloads and they want to build that community. What do you think is the most important thing for them to know and understand to get started? Why is this important? What do you need as a minimum to get this going just to start out with?
So honestly, I would get a basic email plan somewhere. And I know like ConvertKit nowadays has a smaller plan. I'm always a huge fan of ActiveCampaign. So I would say get a way to get people on your list and get some kind of email software. And then the thing is, you don't have to ask podcast listeners, like you don't have to give them a fancy opt-in. You don't really need fancy stuff. Having an email list will give you the power to email out the fact that there's a new episode, which means that you can actually convince your regular listeners to open the app and go and listen right now, instead of having to wait until they open the app and like scroll down because there's a few other new episodes they're subscribed to and like find yours and choose it. So if like listeners and sort of engagement on the podcast is your goal, this gives you an opportunity to tell your biggest fans, hey guys, new episode is here. This is what it's about. Here's the sponsor. Here's my affiliate link to the sponsor. If you use that kind of model, it just gives you power of directing their attention.
And on a note of sponsors care about download numbers.
Yeah.
Early on after the episode is released. So that's why sometimes it is crucial to keep bringing people back to the show within a timely space after the episode is published. So that's where email, I think, is so powerful. And the amount of behind the scenes stuff that you can share, like there are a few podcasts that we edit where we know there was so many funny behind the scenes stuff in there because we've heard the raw file.
Mm-hmm.
And this would be like a perfect way to get a little bit more personal and to be like, oh, guys, this bit, we cut it out. But like, if you want to listen to that, this is like such a laugh. Yeah, we had this total misunderstanding. So yeah, these are like little tidbits that really you wouldn't necessarily be able to share, particularly not via the podcast, because the polished product is there now and people would never know this happened. And I love that part.
Yeah. And it gives people the opportunity to like get more of you and kind of what you bring to the table, but it also gives them an incentive to subscribe, because it's like, if you subscribe, you'll get the funny behind the scenes bits that no one else gets.
Yeah. And that can be enough of a reason for your passionate listeners. Like you said, you see other people with fancy opt-ins and things. You might not even need that, because you can say, hey, your funny opt-in bit, your reward is that you are here and that you get this funny stuff.
Yeah, of course, for like new episodes. But the other things, depending on if you use like affiliate links or stuff, and it's maybe not that relevant for sponsors, but how great is it if you have like seasonal content or something's happening in the world, in your industry, and you can send out like a timely email that goes like, well, here's our 5 most relevant podcast episodes for this. So you can get like listens and you can get sort of more life out of older episodes that way as well. So yeah, I think email could be really, really useful just to get more ears on your podcast.
I think that is probably one of the most convenient ways. I think for marketers and business owners, we hear this a lot, but email is a platform you own.
Yes.
And I think that's something that I know people that are not in the marketing and business space don't think about so much, because we're so used to companies like Facebook, Instagram being around. There's Apple Podcasts, there's this, there's that. And we think that things will be like that forever because they are private companies and whatever. But realistically, you're building your house on a property that you don't own.
Yes. I see people getting their Instagram account disabled or their personal Facebook profile because both of these companies have things in their terms and conditions that a lot of people don't know about or ignore. And it goes well for a really long time. And then suddenly, poof, it's gone. So that's a really big risk you're taking. The other thing is social media platforms, they are built to keep you there, because social media makes money because you see ads. So a podcast app isn't built to sort of work for you as the podcaster. It's built to work for the company that owns the podcast app. And you see this very well on like platforms like Facebook and Instagram. It's just built to keep scrolling. It's not built to get someone to actually engage with you. And I feel like email, it goes in the other direction, right? You own it. You decide when to send. And most people will see most of their emails depending on how many promotional things they get. But they're much more likely to see all of their emails than everything all of their friends or followers or people they follow have posted on Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. And the podcasting is notoriously bad for tracking, because every host will tell you, hey, you had X amount of downloads. You did not. Some of those are plainly bot downloads. Some of those numbers are completely off. Like my Buzzsprout account will tell me I had 100 podcast downloads from Apple Podcasts. I log into Apple Podcasts and it says I had 0 downloads on every episode in Apple Podcasts. So something is not working in Apple Podcasts, because I am subscribed. There should be at least one person who download it on Apple Podcasts. So I know this isn't working. And I know that there's platforms like Podtrack that have been trying to fix this, but you have no clue what's going on realistically. But I still think you have a more direct contact to people and understanding when people do respond to your emails, you have a direct line of communication with that person. And beyond somebody leaving a review in a podcast app that you cannot respond to, that you cannot identify unless they've put something there to identify them with, you are flying blind, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's where email can be still a useful way to get some actual feedback from actual listeners who are saying, hey, on that latest episode, I really enjoyed like this part.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, great. People like this.
Yeah. And you will probably see that once you start promoting your email list on the podcast, you're going to say, hey, if you want behind the scenes, be the first to know when new episodes are out, all of that, sign up for my email list, right? You might even see that there will be topics that get you more of a response, or there will be a subset of your audience that subscribe. And it turns out that it doesn't matter what the topic is, right? But it's only people with kids that subscribe, or it's only people with like some weird hobby you have talked about once. And that might help you like get more specific and get more popular, just because now you know, like, oh, I need to bring up this topic more often because this is what people respond to. And those engaged people are the ones that will lead to the sales for your sponsors.
And before you know, you have a second podcast talking about something completely unrelated that completely takes off because you are on fire about that specific topic, and you've naturally managed to attract all of those people to you without even intending to do that.
I mean,
so that
oopsie.
Oopsie. I think that's totally one of those things that has happened to so many people who started out doing one thing, and then every time they mentioned this, on a side note, I'm just going to rant about this for 3 minutes.
And people respond to that, right?
Because it's like a passion thing.
Yes. Passion, it's this thing where I get really good response whenever I do really personal posts, and it hurts and it's scary and I don't necessarily want to do it. But like, or I get like really upset or ranty about something and everyone loves it, because very often it's something that a lot of other people feel too. It's just that no one is the first to dare and express it. So people respond to that emotion.
Yeah. I just think it's such a shame because I guess writing is a thing that you do, right? So I guess you feel very comfortable like communicating in written format, I would guess.
Yes and no. So the funny thing is, like with most things, it is much easier to do for someone else.
Oh yeah, 100%. We were just saying, I put so many hours, our whole team, writing, editing, we put so much effort into strategy for our clients. And then when it comes to our podcast, I'm like, I put out an episode yesterday and I did not get around to actually record the intro and outro for the episode. But I put it out anyways because that's my promise, and the interview's there, and I will change the file with the intro and outro like now. But sometimes it's like the last thing on the list. And I think with email and writing, it's the same.
I kind of admitted this to you, but I will admit this now so everyone kind of sees that I do this for a living and I'm not perfect at it either. So I do actually have like a sales sequence template that I use, or that people can buy from me. I personally write my own, but I use the exact same buildup. I sent that off to my virtual assistant yesterday because I have a really big deadline and I'm just busy. But I also had this thing where like, wouldn't it be great to do a little bit of a sale on this thing over the weekend? Messaged her and said like, hey, can I give you the template that I sell in my shop? And can you write a couple emails? This is the offer. Here's some ideas. And I looked at the template. I was like, okay, take email 1, use this headline, make it about this. Take email 2, take email 4, turn that one into like the final reminder. And then I'll just go in and I'll tweak it. And I felt so bad. I have a service coming out that's writing sales emails for other people. And like, I hand it off to my virtual assistant. Like, that is bad, right?
It's the famous saying of the shoemaker's kids don't have shoes, right? I think it shows a passion thing when you're doing it for somebody else and you're like, I want to make this the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I know that everyone who's editing with us right now, they're super happy. I get the Slack messages, the thank yous, the, oh my God, this is amazing. That's what I want to get. And that's what I'm focused on. And if it means that I spend 5 minutes less on something to do with our show, then sadly, that is what's going to happen because my focus is the thing. I'm a service provider.
I think a lot of business owners will recognize this. And the best advice I ever got about that is you kind of have to treat your own business like you would a client, but it's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, we are a client of ours. We have like the checklist set up and everything. I think it just gets rushed a little bit sometimes. It's like the least important one.
Yeah. If something has to give, it's usually your own business. And I don't necessarily know how smart it is, but especially if you work as like a service-based business owner, I get it.
I think I'd rather have my own episode be a few hours late than have it be a client's one. And I think that's just that's where you come back to your values and how you assess, what am I going to do? What am I not going to do?
Yeah.
So I think it's normal and I don't feel bad about that. And I think we will get there, right? Like as more and more time goes into it, like nobody's perfect and I'm not so concerned about trying to appear perfect to people. It's not my main occupation. So lots of the people that are listening have businesses. Realistically, it's the majority from the people I've spoken to anyways. The majority have come from connections that I've had and they're all in the business owner space. So most of them know about an opt-in. Most of them have an email service provider. Then it's the usual thing like, what do I send to people? I never know what to say. And I feel like people are going to judge me. I can't share anything personal because I don't even know who these people are. How do we get over this barrier that we feel like seems to be there to just send an email, to just send it?
Well, it's this thing where I like to treat it like a conversation. The easy thing to do would just be a really short email that says like, hey, here's a new episode. Here's what it's about. This was my favorite bit. And then links to standard podcast hosts. Mentally, it's maybe this thing, and I don't know if you talk about ideal client avatars. I just think that most ideal client avatars are bullshit.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's not about age, whether they have kids. It's about that emotional connection and if they identify with what you talk about, right? So if you know one of your podcast listeners or you have this idea, I do like the idea of that. You write an email for one person. You write an email for one person just like you would write an email to your mom, your friend, your coworker, whatever. These people want to hear from you. And especially if you don't have an opt-in, if you go like the easy route I just suggested, which just go like, hey, do you want to get updates on a podcast, exclusive behind the scenes, sign up? They want to hear from you. You didn't have to bribe them to be there, right? They're asking for you to tell them stuff. So I don't think you necessarily have to share really personal stuff unless you feel comfortable or unless that sort of suits the topic of your podcast. Treat it like an informative thing. Like, I guess you would text your husband if you're on the way home, or you would text your partner to like pick up a carton of milk. This is kind of telling your listeners like, hey guys, there's a new podcast episode. And you'll see that once you start doing it, you'll notice the statistics will come into play, right? You'll see that, oh, only 30 or 40% open my emails. Oh, only 10% has actually clicked on anything. And over time, you'll start to sort of assume that this is normal. I feel like you record podcast episodes. That's way scarier than sending a stupid email.
It's funny, right? That's what I was thinking. I was like, why am I so funny about emailing these people? Because I keep recording these things and I keep talking.
So the other thing you could do, okay, here's one. Use your recording thing, because I say treat it like a conversation. Just tell these people what you want to tell them. Have your transcription service like transcribe it so you have it there. You chuck in the recorded version of the email. Just record a little note. Be like, hey, listeners of so-and-so, we have a new episode. This is what it's about. And kind of literally talk. And then take that audio file and turn it into an email.
Yep. I think lots of people had not the most amazing experience with writing when it comes to school. Really funny story. My last 2 years in school here in Germany, my grammar was getting better and better and better and better and better. And my content of my essays got graded worse and worse and worse. So I would end up at the same point where I was 2 years before that. And even in my final exam, I had to have an argument about the grade. And it kind of left me feeling like super put off writing for years.
Yeah.
And I still have this thing where I'm like, I'm not good at writing. I'm not good at writing. I'm not good at writing. And at the end, other people have actually said, they're like, oh, I like what you wrote there. I thought that was very good. And that was entertaining. And I was like, really? So sometimes we have these things still where we're not letting go of stuff that used to be like a long time ago, or we put too much emphasis on something someone told us that one time where we didn't get it right. And it's kind of stuck. But I think if you can't talk to yourself and record it, tell someone else about it, but record it. Find a friend and just say like, hey, can I just tell you about this new podcast episode that we're going to have coming out, and record it. So if that's a problem, like make it an actual conversation with somebody else and you won't feel so bad. And they'll be like, oh, that's really interesting. That sounds like something I would like to listen to. If that one person thinks it might be interesting, other people will think it might be interesting, particularly if they're listening to your podcast every single week.
Yeah. Absolutely. The other thing, it's kind of where we stop ourselves from beginning, but it's the actually beginning that makes us any good. I did a big rant to a friend back when I still lived in Bali, and he just started a new company and he was asking me all this stuff about SEO, and I kind of taught him how to write like a big pillar post that will rank well on Google. And 2 weeks later, he still hadn't done anything. He's like, yeah, but you're so good at writing. It's not fair, yada, yada. No, I haven't started. And I kind of said to him, was like, well, why do you think I'm good at writing? It's not because I sat there whining and never started. It's because I've written so much. And it's this other thing where there's different ways how people process information. So it could also be that you don't love to write because you don't love to read, or you don't really connect with words on a page. But you'll have listeners that both love to listen and love to read.
And you can still send them a voice note via email, by the way. If you don't mind video, like there are so many services that now allow you to record like quick videos that don't take much, and you don't have to host them anywhere and you don't have to do anything. And you could just legit record like a subscriber video and just be like, hey guys, like I love sending you emails. I just don't like the writing part, but I will do a video. How personal is that they have a video from you in their inbox? So even that gets appreciated.
Basically, there's no excuse not to do it.
Basically. So I feel like you could have fun with it. Fun was like a thing that came up big time for me because I listened to so many other people for years and I didn't consider what they consider to be fun as fun. And then I felt bad because I thought, oh my God, everyone else says this is fun. I should find this fun, but I find this really boring.
The peer pressure.
Yes, it's real. It's like back in school, to be honest, it's no different. Like if you're not part of this cool people club over here, you're just no one. I was listening to the Duped podcast yesterday on critical thinking. It was such a good point. Whenever everyone flocks there and buys the thing and goes like fan cult at someone, that is when you should be activating your critical thinking, because everyone is just running there right now like sheep, blindly buying into this thing, and you're not. And now you have this FOMO, everyone is doing it thing. If everyone is doing it, you should be asking, why are they all doing it? Because it's unlikely that the hairdresser, the online business owner, the service provider, the coach, and the whatever are going to all get value out of this program.
I mean, that's what happens on the stock market too, right? That's a big play where the market makers will sell you on something and then they make a profit and everyone gets stuck holding the bag. The other thing that kind of sparks is kind of useless for most of your listeners because it's from a Dutch website. They do like independent journalism and they talk about how the majority is almost always wrong. It's the same thing, right?
That's what translation software is for. Like, if you have a link to that, send it to me. I will totally link it up because I think everyone can press the translate button on the browser. Because if everyone says, oh, you have to do email and you have to do it this way, like you don't. You can do it a different way and you can choose not to send a text-based email, but you could still send an email and you could make it video-based. You don't have to do things in the way that you think they need to be done. Like often there is like another variety, another way of doing it that you can still do the thing, but do it your way.
You can still listen to this and say, screw you, I'm not doing it. And probably a few years from now, something will happen and you'll be like, oh, I wish back then I started doing it then.
That's me, by the way.
Yeah. On the other hand, it's also this thing where make it yours. When I do my writing service, like I don't want to edit things. I want to write them. I want to tweak them and I want to write them once. So I've added on like a little bit of an opportunity to get on a call with me and edit together with me so we can like talk and do it together. But like a lot of people have 2 or 3 revision rounds, right? A lot of copywriters do that. And I'm like, well, you get a much better price from me because I'm going to do it right the first time. Heck, there's texting services these days that has nothing to do with email list building, right? But you can have people subscribe via text. I think that's a lot bigger right now in the US than for us.
Yeah.
But if you're a really big texter, do that.
I think it's interesting that there's like a cultural difference for lots of little things, but email isn't one of them. So I have European-based people and US-based people and people in Australia. Everyone's sending emails. Yeah. Everyone is reading them. So this is something that's definitely solid no matter where your listener is. And I definitely think like Europeans have always been a little bit more privacy focused, and giving out phone numbers and stuff is not something people here will do very easily. But email isn't one of those things that's going to be influenced by that. So that's like another reason why email is quite that powerful. Years ago, I would have been like, yeah, it's good, but you know, I don't really like emails. But then every 2 years, I have to go and clear those 3,000 unread emails out of my inbox. And I do have to keep coming back to my emails. And now I keep on top of it because I figured out that there's no point.
Yeah.
So now I do read them. I had lots of people join our list, and I know that not everyone is in the right place to benefit from it. So I don't get offended by someone unsubscribing, because why should they stay?
I don't know how to be nice about this, because at the end of the day, it's this thing where it's not about you, people unsubscribing. And in a way, I would be grateful, because it's like, if you don't want to read my emails, like, don't sit here and clutter up this list, right? They're doing you a favor, right? Or it's this thing where I've tried to unsubscribe for a lot because I noticed that I just can't manage the amount of emails I'm getting. I got an email yesterday. I'm doing a sale now because I got an email yesterday from a person who I love. They're launching a new program. I looked on my PayPal and I was like, well, I have to make $2,000 over the weekend because I'm buying this thing. I didn't read the sales page. I saw the email. I read a few lines. I clicked through. I clicked on the button just to see what the price would be and what kind of money I would need to get together now to get it. I didn't read the sales page until after.
It's the level of trust you have as well with that person, you know, and you're keeping on top of it.
It's like, this is where your super fans are. And if someone decides that they don't want to be your super fan, or they don't want to, you know, get that email with the reminder and your promo link for whatever affiliate or sponsorship deal you have, then that's okay. But it doesn't say anything about you.
No, it really doesn't. Lots of things that we think are about us are not about us. I did a whole podcast episode that I titled "No One Cares," and that's amazing.
And also, no one reads, and that's amazing too.
Yes.
No one's going to notice that typo.
One of our team members was like, oh, Jess, like, maybe you should change the title of that. Like, that's a bit rude. I'm like, no, that's perfect. I'll keep it that, because no one cares, and it's amazing. And that's exactly what I want to say. We think people are constantly obsessed about what we do, what we say, how we dress, and whatever our nose looks like. People don't care. They like you for who you are.
They're like worrying about themselves. They're asking all the same questions, but about them and not about you.
They don't care because they're in their own head the entire time. So you get to try it out. You get to send one email and 3 people will unsubscribe, or 5 people will unsubscribe. And then you'll be like, okay, nothing bad happened.
No one died.
Nope, nothing, same. But what might happen is something good might happen. And that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't sent the email.
Yes. Well, it's that, right? And you'll probably at some point find out, if you actually do have a business and you do sales, that there's a few emails that will have made all the difference. But the only way of getting to those few emails is by sending
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Seems so simple, right? But I think it just takes a little bit of a reframe, right? Let's not see the negative of it. Let's just see the good thing that could actually happen.
It's this thing where you start running a business and you think you need to learn how to run a business, but it's all around like dealing with the inner parts that are a little bit scared or a little bit broken. It's more about your own personal growth and what you believe about yourself than about what other people believe about you. Once you start sort of doing that work, it will get easier. And I sometimes send email and like, oh, people might hate this, right? But the funny thing is, that's okay too.
Yeah, like, do you like everyone? I don't.
No.
So why do you expect all the people to like your emails? I'm back home right now and I'm bound to bump into people that I remember from school and I would rather not see their face. What can I do? It's just normal. We don't have to love everybody. There isn't a law yet that says you have to love everybody. The other thing that I know people get really scared of, other than people might unsubscribe, is if they have to sell something. Or in the case of podcasters, a lot of people forget that the easiest way to monetize is to ask people for a donation. And this is like the simplest thing. It takes 2 minutes to set up buymeacoffee.com. It's one-time donations, not regular subscriptions. You don't have to provide anything extra than what you're doing already. And all you have to say is, if you want to support the show, here is a link to do so. And people don't do it because they equate asking for donations for begging. That's something that I've come across so many times. I feel like I'm standing there going, please give me money. But it's really not about that.
Okay, so I'm going to address the begging first. That idea insinuates that you have given them nothing in return, and you have.
Hours and hours and hours every week go into the work that you're doing.
I get it, right? Because there's this sort of hump you have to get over, especially if you started this for fun and it turned into something much bigger and it's kind of accidentally and you're like, wait, can this make money? I get it. But the thing is, how beautiful is it that we can support people with our money and, you know, not just with sharing and reviews, but with our money if they create things that bring value to our lives. And like laughter, I think, is valuable. Like, don't come to me like, my show is just entertaining. I'm like, we could all use some entertainment, right? Especially these days. Like, please entertain me, educate me. I might have to find a podcast that will let me travel through podcast episodes to faraway things. So if people find it worth hours of their time to listen to you, you give them something. And it's okay to be rewarded for it.
Yeah, it's proven. If they keep coming back, you're giving them something, and you better figure out what that something is, because that is a really important thing for you to know, because you need to be doing more of that. But that something is worth a lot. And we always think that because something is fun or it comes easy to us, we don't deserve to be paid for it. That's like a super common thing. And I'm pretty sure I still have that when it comes to tech, because it's so easy to me and I've practiced it for years. And to me, it's clear what I'm trying to do here. And I don't value that enough sometimes. So super common, but you put in so many hours into it. 1 to 2 hours recording, 3 to 4 times that amount of time just to edit it if you're doing it. Then you have to promote it. You have to do all the other things. It takes so much time, and you deserve to get paid for that time.
And you can love doing it and still get paid really well for it. I think that we have this really wrong idea that work is supposed to be hard.
Oh, yes. Oh.
I mean, there's too many to unpack here, but like, you're allowed to. And it's also this thing where it's like, you don't make people pay. You give to people that have extra money and that can afford to support creators that they love to easily do that.
Yep.
And why wouldn't you?
I don't understand why you wouldn't, but I know it is a thing. So I'm hoping that perspective shift helps to change that a little bit. And on the note of email service providers, like ConvertKit literally just added a tip jar. So if you're in a country where you can use Stripe, you can have that straight in your emails as a way for people to support you. All of the podcast hosting platforms have a super easy way for you to integrate buymeacoffee.com or Patreon or anything like that by just adding the link into your podcast provider. And it's by default on every episode. So you just write a nice sentence. Even if you need to justify it to yourself, you don't justify it to other people because they know and they appreciate it. But even you can say, hey, I put upwards of 20 hours a week into this, and I would be the happiest person on the planet if you supported me. And if that makes you feel better, just say it however you want to say it. Just say it just at one time.
Especially if you only have to do it once. The other thing, we have this idea that selling is something bad. But the thing is, selling is of service if you do it to the right person. If you have a solution that can help me with a problem that I want to spend money to fix, would you please sell to me? Because I need someone to fix it. And it's this thing where we think selling only benefits us. And that's not true, right? If someone pays me to write their sales page, they don't have to do it. And if it's something they hate and they take weeks on, I'm doing them a favor by selling them this service.
Yep.
And I feel like a lot of that also comes back to how we feel about ourselves and maybe experiences we've had in the past, or we somehow don't feel worthy of it. But the thing, if you have a product that helps someone and someone is out there and they want this product, they just haven't found it yet, you're not helping them by not offering it.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing the opposite of helping right now. You're hiding the solution from them. And it's like, we all experience like the sleazy, shitty, bad selling parts, because those are the parts that irritate us and we're worried we're going to be like that. Yeah, like, oh, bro marketing, or you buy this thing and it turns out not to be what you expected and it wasn't helpful. And you're like, well, that was a waste of money, right? And sometimes it's a little, sometimes it's a lot. But if you're honest about what your product or your service is and how it works and what it does and who it's for, and I think it's really helpful to be like, this is for you and if you're this person, it's not for you, don't buy it. That is the most helpful thing in the world. And yeah, you got money in return, but it's not like you're not doing anything or you haven't created something.
I felt so lucky because when I first started online, I was part of like a very small kind of group thing with a very lovely coach. And she had this thing that she used to tell us, selling is helping.
Yes.
And I heard that from very early on when I was starting out online, and I didn't realize how precious her drilling, selling is helping has been to me, because whenever I got on a discovery call, a sales call, of whatever you want to call it, whenever I got on the call, I was like Selling is helping. Selling is helping. Selling is helping. I can do it.
And sometimes it's also saying like, hey, you know what? This isn't right for you. In my previous business, I used to tell people would come to me for like web design work. And I would be like, actually, I would go and do this instead. Like, your website's fine. This is your problem. And I get that it's really difficult if you're struggling financially to be detached from the outcome. But the more detached you are from the outcome and you're approaching it as helping, the better it will go and the more people you will attract.
It feels more natural. We had a client ask the other day about repurposing some content into an audio feed. I was like, you don't need editing, you need Hello Audio, which basically, by the way, is amazing. And I'll put our link for it because we appreciate you using our link and us getting a kickback because we have a business to run. So I'm going to sell you. But if you need an audio feed for your paid programs, you need to get Hello Audio. You don't need a podcast editor. And I'm not going to sell you on editing when all you want to do is repurpose. And that's where selling is helping. I'm here to help you and I will save you some money and you will appreciate that. And then you will buy something else.
Yeah. Or you will recommend us. And I feel like the power of a recommendation is also there. This is kind of off topic. I really hate when people just straight up ask for advice. If someone just straight up asks for advice, I will send them to like, I have a paid hourly call. If you want to pick my brain, you can pay me for my time.
Yep.
If you know that this is what I do for work and you send a nice message, I'm like, hey, I don't know if you have a paid solution for this, or hey, can I ask you a question? I will always try and help you.
It's normal. It is the approach and the intention that matters. I've had people who've accessed my paid service and who kept asking questions beyond what I've been paid for. And I will help you the first or second time because I want you to be on your merry way. But what I will not do is forever provide free consultancy because I cannot. And it is not sustainable. And the airplane reference that everyone has gotten tired of put your own oxygen mask on first before you help somebody else. I am so sick and tired of hearing it. But put your own mask on first, for God's sake, because you're not going to be there.
It's not just that, right? It's also this thing of like, you have things that are important in your life, whether that's your family, your plans, your hobbies. You have things that are important in your life. If you spend every waking hour giving people free advice, you won't get to eat, you won't get to pay rent, you won't get to spend time with the people you love. Like, it's okay to put boundaries around like what we give away for free. And this is especially for the podcasters resisting putting a tip jar. Ask for a donation from the people that can afford to support you.
And you can say, if you can't afford this, that's cool.
Yeah. If you're struggling to make ends meet, please don't donate. If you have extra or you can afford 2 holidays a year, we would love for you to buy us a coffee in exchange for this great episode. You can say it like that. You're allowed to say it like that. Like, please do not stretch yourself financially to buy any of these things.
Yep. It's one of the things where I ask on every booking form because I'm aware that we work with people who are currently not earning any money from the work that we're doing because it's the industry that we're in. And with every booking, I ask for people to specify that they have the spare income that they can afford to pay for this without putting themselves at any financial risk. Because I want to know that you are not choosing between eating and funding the thing that you're doing, because I don't want to be involved with that. And I don't want that pressure on me, and I want to sleep at night. So I want to know that you're good. I want to work with people consistently for a long period of time. And I don't want us to both waste our time to onboard somebody who's really just struggling to get by, and in a month we're going to undo all of that again anyways. We're better off just waiting 3-4 months. There's no harm in waiting 2, 3, 4, 6 months. We don't go anywhere. We'll rant about spending money, like these kind of sales tactics to be like pushed into buying stuff that you can't afford. That's not what selling is about.
No, the suggestion of like, oh yeah, just put it on 3 different credit cards. Like, no, that means you can't afford it.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like this is very much, again, a cultural thing where the only thing you go in debt for around here is a house and maybe you have car payments. In the US, it's kind of, you put everything on your credit card and then you'll figure out how big the hole is if you ever figure it out.
That's the thing, that we're making it easy for people to support us. And that's just it. We just want to remove barriers. These people want to support you. They want to help you. If you have services to sell, they want them. And I think the shame has to like go around telling people about our thing. You know, the Denise Duffield Thomas video about how men sell? and how women sell. Here's how men sell. I have this phone. It costs 500. Do you want it? Yes. Thanks. Take the money, go. How women sell. I have this phone, but it's really not very good. So maybe next year, after I've lost like 100 pounds, I would let you see it, and you could maybe give me just like 5, not too much though. I mean, only if it's okay, and you could maybe buy it, but yeah, not just yet. We have all these things that we think are associated with us being able to sell, whereas like legit no man thinks about that. They're just like, hey, this thing, do you want it? Yes, no.
Yeah, there's very much a cultural and maybe even a thing where men have been bringing home the bacon for the last thousands of years in a sense. So it's also this thing where it's new to us and women relate to people differently, right? We're wired kind of differently. And I don't know if you're supposed to say that anymore, but stereotypically speaking, generally speaking, averagely speaking, men and women are different. But that doesn't mean there isn't an option available to us that works for us as women or identifying as women that honors the process, but also honors the fact that we do really fucking good work and it's allowed to be compensated.
And you're allowed to just say that you do this work. You don't have to disclaimer it, apologize in advance or any of those things.
I'm really sorry. If you don't want to do this, maybe I can do this. It's like, no, this is what I'm great at. This is what it's going to cost. If you need a sales page, if you need sales emails, like literally, you don't even have to talk to me. You can just book it on the site and I'll send you a bill. And that's all there is to it, right? And it works really well. There's a lot around like owning the things that you do. And that kind of comes from everything.
It's how you approach everything as well. So when you ask me something and I don't know about it, I will tell you, ooh, I don't know about that. But I know someone who does.
Yeah, here's who to talk to.
That's like it. Like I pay someone who's good at writing to write things.
And I mean, I don't think there's things that you have to always outsource. You can do things you're not good at because that's how you get better at them. You don't have to lie or pretend to make any sort of sales happening. And the same is true in your emails. If you don't know what to say in your emails, just start by like, hey, I don't really know what to say in this email. Accept that. Like you don't have to turn everything into a huge production, and we're humans talking to other humans. It's kind of like recording a podcast, except that it's a solo episode. You're a human talking to other humans.
Yeah, I basically record myself ranting for every Tuesday. And then I basically talk to interesting people who have things that they're good at on the other days. And I'm fine with that. Some people will like it and lots of people will not. And that's okay as well. So like, that's like my life. Those people that you surround yourself with and that will stick around, they're like you. They think in similar ways, and that's why they're hanging out, and that's the perfectly acceptable thing. So if people need some help with their writing, where would they go and find out more about you?
You can find my website at damncopy.co. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to write you guys an email template that you can use to send out your latest podcast episode that you can go and download for free. I haven't figured out what you guys want after that, but if you want like a special offer on something after, just let me know and I'll set something up. And if you stay on my list, you'll eventually see some sales emails in action. I think that'd be really nice just to have a little template that you can plug and play, and I'll put some phrasing in there for your tip jar or whatever you're promoting. I'm going to put that in that email. So it's not just to like, hey, here's a podcast episode. Here's what it's about. Here's how you can support us. So there's really no excuse after you have that anymore.
No, and the thing is, you didn't even write it, so it's not like you're asking for it. Isn't that amazing? Like somebody else wrote it for you.
True. You can blame it on me. I will take the blame.
Like, you know what? Sometimes that makes all the difference, you know?
Yeah, it's true. Well, or it's this thing where you see how someone else kind of approaches it, and you're like, oh, I like that. Or maybe you go, oh, I don't like that. I'm never ever sending this email. But it gives you sort of a starting or a reference point to go, oh, I want to get more serious than this, or, oh, mine needs more profanity, or mine needs more sort of...
More me.
More you, right? Make it more you.
I think that's so amazing, and I think that'll be super useful. And if you think, ew, I would never say that, then you can just press that button at the bottom that says unsubscribe, and then you'll be fine with that as well.
Yeah, you don't have to be here, right? Like, if this is not your party, you can go somewhere else. It's fine.
Yeah, you can leave someone's wedding without telling them that you're going to leave, and the same goes for emails. So it's really no offense taken ever. So one question I ask everyone before we head off that I really like, because I've heard some interesting stories, is this one. Is there anything that anyone's ever said to you on this journey, and it's a journey for everybody, where it's really stuck with you? And it might have even become like a little mantra or something.
This was very, very tricky for me. This is going to make me sound like a raging narcissist, but it's kind of something I've always said to myself. I have found a reference where I may have picked it up as a kid. I recently reread Harry Potter, all the books, and now I'm like rewatching all the movies. Almost on last one tonight. And there's this thing that at some point Ginny talks about, the thing about growing up with Fred and George is that you kind of start thinking that anything is possible if you have enough nerve. And that to me is like, if you're brave enough, there are so many things that you can do. I became a business owner straight after university because I thought working in an office or working 9 to 5 to build someone else's stock portfolio or company wealth, like that was a lie. To me, that was a lie. Sitting 8 hours behind a computer somewhere at a desk, that seemed really, really like not a place that I would want in my life. So I think that if you're very, very honest about what you want, that is the first step to getting anything, right? You have to admit that you want it. If the goal is big enough and the reason and the motivation is big enough, you will do the steps. I read that in a book recently. If you're brave enough, anything really is possible. You kind of have to go and ask.
And I don't think there's anything bad about thinking that. The thing that's kept me going is the belief that I can do anything. Within reason, of course. But I think that if you put your mind to something and you put in the work that it takes to get in that direction, while you might not be the best in the world at it, and I don't think there's anything that I am the best in the world at other than being me, because that's what I know, you can surely get pretty good at something and good enough that people will pay you more money than you need. And you can have fun with it and you can meet interesting people and do all the things that you want to do.
No, and it feels like the first step is the hardest, especially when it comes to like admitting you want something that's not the standard or the norm. So it's this thing where just be brave, and there's maybe not everything in the world, but a lot more than you think there would be.
A lot more than other people would like to have you believe it would be, because that's the scary thing.
Yes, very true.
I've opted out of so many things that seem like so accepted. It took that opt out to start with to now have like a different view of how things work. And I think maybe it takes that. And that's where the first step is scary, because other people, they don't understand. And that's okay as well. You don't have to make them understand. You don't have to make them accept. You don't have to do anything. You just have to do you.
It comes at a price. And to me, the price is worth the result, because this is the thing you really want. Man, this is a downer to finish on.
No, I don't think it is. Just like I don't think no one cares and that's amazing. It's not a downer.
If you take like radical responsibility for what you want, that makes you probably part of a very, very small group that will live a very, very rewarding life on purpose. You live your life on purpose, and there's not a lot of people that do that.
No, and I don't think that's a downer.
No. Okay, good. Well, that makes me happy.
Me too. Like, I've accepted that though. And maybe that's what doesn't make it the downer. It's huge, immense, what you can make happen once you do take responsibility for taking those actions. Powerful stuff. And this is where I will just cut us. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for all the tips and for taking the time to talk. Super interesting. And I think lots of people are going to get so much value from this.
Oh, that's great. Because to me, it feels like I'm just showing up and being myself and sharing my opinions. So that's awesome.
That's what we need to be doing. And that's what everyone else needs to go and do in their emails now and stop making excuses. So go off and do that. And we'll see you back for the next episode where we're ranting about something else, probably. So have fun. Bye, and thanks again.
That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you. If you are looking for a community where you can brainstorm with like-minded podcasters and business owners, then don't forget to check out our Facebook group. You can find it at pristinepodcast.com/group. The link, as always, is also in the show notes.